Tanya August-Hanson MLC is joining us in the studio with the news that's breaking this weekend that you've decided to pull out of government as such, because the Home Affairs is where you're in, and that's, besides, I know, the Post Office, which sort of is a sideline, that's your one government department, as such.
Yeah.
You've pulled out. Okay, over to you. Why?
Well, it's not on sort of particularly bad terms at all or anything like that. I'm still happy to work with Home Affairs, but there was something that I've been thinking about for a number of months, and actually we had an interview, I remember, it's just after Christmas, wasn't it, that they went out with the MLCs, just seeing how they got on. And you asked me about departmental membership and what would be the key reasons why I might consider leaving and how I felt about the uplift. I responded with saying that basically, the uplift to me isn't really something, it's about my moral compass and how I feel about it, whether or not I feel comfortable in the department. I did feel comfortable in the department, but the one thing that did bother me was collective responsibility within the department, because I felt like my government work and my parliamentary work, on the parliamentary side of things in Tynwald, there were things that were coming up that I felt that I would have had a better understanding across the piece if I wasn't in government. Because then you're looking at the scrutiny, you're looking across all of the departments, you're not looking at it in silo, and you're not looking at it and thinking to yourself, I want to protect that work that I've been doing on domestic abuse or sex offences or the miscellaneous provisions.
Because you're very heavily involved in that.
I was involved in the legislation side of it. That was my departmental responsibility. Yeah, that's all done now.
Okay, we'll come back to that side of things. I want to hammer it down, because I always think there's no smoke without fire. You're pulling out, and come on, what's going on? Was there a personality clash? You're the minister. What was going on?
At times there were personality clashes, but actually I find it quite helpful I don't know how others feel about it, but for example, in the Sir Jonathan Michael debate in Tynwald, earlier this week or earlier last week, Chris Robertshaw said something, and he said it was quite a sort of a profound thing that he said. He said, if I was a minister, I'd only want one deputy as a departmental member, and he said, and I wouldn't want them to be the type of individual that would agree with me all the time. I'd want them to be the type of individual that would challenge me.
Well, let me say, as I know you are not one for just rolling over.
I'm not shrinking violet, no.
And we've had our moments.
Oh, yeah,
it's incredible.
Yeah.
No, and I mean that in a really good way, that you don't put up with stuff. You won't roll over. So has that been the problem? No,
at times there's always going to be disagreements on departments, and there is always going to be sort of a certain level of, yes, I can agree with that, yes, I can take that, but we need a bit of manoeuvrability with certain things, like, for example, the parole committee. So the final decision would rest, and this isn't the reason why, by the way, but it's just an example. The final decision on any independent parole committee recommendation rests with the minister. That's something that other people might feel very strongly about and think that there are reasons behind it and it should stay. It's the type of thing that perhaps I don't feel comfortable with, and I'm not very happy with. So it's those types of things that kind of, they deserve a level of challenge and they deserve a level of debate. And I'm not in any way at odds with Home Affairs. I'm really happy to continue on working with Home Affairs. I've still got a very good relationship with its CEO, Dan Davies, who, by the way, is doing a fantastic job in there. The people that I've worked in there with have been amazing, absolutely amazing. I mean, we've got some people in there, like, for example, Prison Governor Bob McComb. His work in rehabilitation is out of this world. It is, in my opinion, the best in the British Isles, because you can't just have somebody going through the justice system and then not setting them up and getting them into a good place enough so that they're not going to go back into that system and repeat the circle. He's working very, very hard on that.
And you were doing the work with inside. Now you're going to be on the outside of this tent now, aren't you?
Yeah.
Oh, you almost sound like you're rushing it.
Well, in a lot of ways, yes, because now I'm I'm a parliamentarian. I'm in Tynwald, and I can look at things instead of feeling protective over the domestic abuse bill and feeling protective over the sex offenders bill, because I understand all of the reasoning behind why this is done and why that's done and how this links to that piece.
And this is what you're going through. Just hold this up. This is sort of this is UK legislation that you're looking at, or something, is it? This is this domestic abuse.
What you're holding in your hand at the moment. I mean, I know that there's been sort of a little bit of press recently about the domestic abuse bill and why it isn't already in the branches.
Why isn't it already in the branches?
Well, it's changed. It's had sort of a number of different faces. So we started with the diversion of offenders. Personally, and I was with the public on this when it went out to public consultation, it needed splitting. Diversion of offenders and domestic abuse, I mean, we shouldn't have those together in the same bill, and quite frankly, they're both very important matters. Then we looked at the Scottish version that came out last year. The Act came out last year. And that was the way that they write their legislation in Scotland is quite, it's not very prescriptive. It's sort of, you're making an assumption that it would relate to this or that because it's like a common sense approach. Our legislation and the UK's legislation is very similar in that it's prescriptive. So you need to kind of like lay it out, if you get what I mean, for the Deemsters, for the judges. Like, you need to lay it out for it to be interpreted properly and accurately. And that's basically the attempt that's being done here, because
but the UK's doing one as well, isn't it? I mean, or England or whatever.
That's the whole thing. So we focused on the Scottish version. This came out in January. So this is the sort of transforming the response to domestic abuse consultation.
Pages and pages.
It's pages and pages,
right.
But inside it, they've also pulled together a draft bill, and that draft bill is, quite frankly, excellent. It's absolutely excellent.
Okay, well,
so that's what ours is going to be based on now.
When do you hope to see it happen?
Dr. Alex Allinson, who's now sort of taken over responsibility for it, he's or appears to have over the course of the last week or so, he is very much he's very much of the opinion that it's going to be out before October. I've seen the draft bill before I left the department, and it is in a good form at the moment. It just needs a little bit more consultation with the third sector. But that aside, it's in a really, really good place, and so sex offences.
Let's get back to you. Are you in a good place?
Yes.
Are you feeling happy about the decision? Are you going to see the Chief Minister on Monday to ask for another department?
Absolutely not, no.
I mean, I know it sounds mercenary, but I mean, I'm asking, but you take a pay cut then, do you, basically? Because the Post Office doesn't count in the same way as being on a board. Is that right?
No, I don't take any remuneration for the Post Office. I do that for free.
Okay. Should we have a quick chat about that? How do you think you fared when you were answering all these questions? And what was going on? Julie Edge's face was a picture. I mean, like, she's sitting there. Mr. Hooper is obviously clearly there's things going on there between the two of them. Did you feel that this is something you want to do? I mean, back all the sort of questions off. How do you think?
There are a lot of difficulties. I'm not giving up on that. I think that the Post Office is in transition at the moment. The focus groups that are being done right now, and it's very much an argument about the research itself. I mean, we've not collated that research. That research project isn't finished yet.
Well, you asked Mr. Hooper to add something in. Has he come back to you and added? Because I think that's what you're trying to say. Is come on, all contribute. Don't just snipe on the edges.
Well, there's no point sort of sniping from when you're halfway through a research project. That doesn't happen anywhere. And I mean, I've spent a lot of time researching at university doing my thesis, and the limitations, and you start looking at the problems with that piece of research towards the end of it, because then you're doing it from a very you've got the whole picture then, to a sense.
Are you happy to stay in the Post Office?
Oh, gosh,
Are you happy to be staying in the MLC and all that sort of thing? You're not.
I am. I'm. To be honest, this has kind of opened up opportunities for me to kind of be able to do something that I firmly believe in. Is this need to kind
be
of
a backbencher in a sense?
Yeah. Well, Chris Robertshaw, Jane Paul Wilson, Kate Beecroft are all in the same position as me. They've not got departments, and they have a full workload. Jane never stops working.
Make absolutely clear, if you're offered another one, you'll think about it, or you won't think about it even, or you want to stay as independent?
I'm staying as is for the time being. I'm not going to rule it out down the line, but right now I want to try out not having a departmental membership and see how it works, because I feel like I'm now given a level of freedom to be able to pick up stones in departments right across the board. I don't have any collective responsibility in terms of government work. I do to a sense with the post office, because it's a democracy at the end of the day, isn't it?
Are you going to be trouble? Are you going to? You got that little look the glint in your eye, like
no,
now this leaves you free and not to be restrained.
I want to be constructive, but
so Home Affairs going to get it, isn't it? Now you're outside.
Actually, I think that working with people in government is a far better approach. I mean, in Home Affairs, for example, I worked with this amazing guy called Mr. Bateman, and he's a legislative manager in that, and he is one of the most passionate people about legislation I've ever come across, and working with him has been an absolute privilege. Okay. So I want to be able to work with the civil service. I want to be able to work with ministers, with MHKs and MLCs, with backbenchers. I want to be able to work with them to come to like positive results for the Manx people. I don't want to set myself against anybody, because it doesn't necessarily always produce productive work. But it doesn't mean that I wouldn't be scrutinising, and that is key to my passions in that.